There we go. Okay. All right. Good morning. It's so nice to see you both. Marissa and Maxine are with me today. And we're doing another episode of Time to Talk Tea Time. So I am going to pour a cup of tea. And naturally, since the topic is cancer, I'm having some turmeric tea or turmeric, however you like to pronounce it. And this tea has a little bit of ginger with it as well, just in case you have a little upset stomach, or also just for the flavor. And ginger, is really good for circulation, for the GI tract. So turmeric is a really powerful antioxidant and anti-inflammatory. You can have it in your food, but I particularly like to have it in the tea. So, all right. So today we're talking about a very unique and special situation where a person may have two diagnoses when they're diagnosed with cancer. And that's not so unusual, but it is very different to have a neuromuscular disorder. These two women today, Marissa and Maxine, both were diagnosed with breast cancer after they already were dealing with MS or multiple sclerosis. So some of our audience may know a little bit about MS, and I think I'll just do a very quick explanation that it is a condition that involves your immune system. So it's autoimmune. It's where your own immune system attacks your central nervous system. So it could be your spinal cord, could be the brain. People get small, large, multiple, or one lesion, which then, since your brain and spinal cord control everything else, then you have various difficulties with function. It could be with vision, speaking, could be memory, could be walking. There's just a variety. So before we go too broad with all of that, we'll just listen to both of our post-cancer patient treatments today, because both of these patients have finished treatment for breast cancer and are in a post-treatment phase. So I'll start out with just asking about, even before breast cancer, when you look back now, what was your life like? What was it like before you got the diagnosis? Would you like to start us off, Marissa?
Sure. I was diagnosed with MS back in 2016, and it was the progressive type, and it was a long, slow decline. I was getting more and more upset and unaccepting about the diagnosis, about watching myself very slowly deteriorate with functions. And I was really just giving up. I was at a point where I was using a wheelchair, and I just was like, this is lousy. I'm not enjoying this. I don't want to go out. I didn't want to be seen. I just thought my life is awful and I'm giving up. Then I get that summer, I was really in a bad state of mind.
Mm-hmm.
And I go for my, mammogram, right? I wasn't even going to go. I went every year. And this one year, I'm like, why even bother? Who cares? My life is so lousy anyway. I don't even care.
Mm-hmm.
And my husband said, no, you're going. He made me go to get this mammogram. And it was shocking because I went from having a normal mammogram the year before to stage 3 breast cancer. It was shocking. It was like it went from 0 to 10. And had I not had a mammogram that year, I would definitely have been at stage 4 at that point. There was lymph node involvement. There were many lesions, many tumors, I guess. And it was terrifying. And at first, when I was diagnosed, I was still in that state of mind where I said to the breast surgeon, do we even want to bother? Why are we going to fix something that's so broken? That's how I felt. I honestly felt that way. And he was like a little mad at me. He's like, you get cancer in your bones. It's painful. You don't want that. So kind of like was a slap across the face, like a reality slap. Like it just occurred to me. I had so much before that breast cancer diagnosis. And now I'm like, oh my God, I can die from this. And I was like, wow, I had so much and I didn't even see it. All I could see was what I don't have. And I was getting angrier and angrier about it. And now I'm like, I had such a good life. Everything was so wonderful. And now I might die. In a total turnaround. I started appreciating things. I started going out. I didn't care about people seeing me in a wheelchair. I was, I looked at everything so differently and I started to see it took thinking I was going to lose everything to finally see everything that I had and appreciate it. And everyone, the doctor, my oncologist was very nervous about me going on chemotherapy because I had MS. She was very concerned that it was just going to make me so much sicker and I was going to be bedridden. And we were all of us very, nervous, like this is going to be really, really worse.
Wow.
And the thing that was so interesting
Mm-hmm.
was that the chemo put my MS into remission and I felt fantastic on it. Like that's the crazy thing.
That's so amazing. Everything of what you just said, first of all, where you were in your state of mind, then getting the next diagnosis and staying in that state of mind, going downhill, but then how that all turned around. And then even how the chemo ended up. That's just amazing. I'm wondering, Maxine, similar or you were in a whole different state? Because we're not all the same. Your pre-diagnosis, what was life like?
Well, I had gotten my diagnosis of MS 2 years before.
Okay.
And I was 67. And when I got my MS diagnosis, it was devastating. I woke up one day and couldn't walk. And the pain I'd never experienced, it was horrible. And it took me 2 years of grieving and having to learn how to navigate. Even though I was 67, I worked full time. I had a very full life. I had a baby when I was 46, so he was still in college. I mean, and it was devastating. And I felt like I was just sort of, I went from wheelchair to walker to cane. And when I was using the cane, I thought I was a big shot. That was like, I had arrived, but the pain of walking was too much. I could walk very little. So, but I was still, I was working. I finally felt like I had found a little bit of normal. And I got my regular mammogram every year. And I got the report from the hospital that there was an abnormal. And my doctor, who had been so wonderful for me for 10 years, never got back to me. There was such a glitch of what I needed to have. I needed a deeper MRI. Mammogram, and then I needed, all this other stuff. And it was crazy how hard it became. And it was 3 months almost from the abnormal mammogram to having a biopsy.
Goodness.
And it was ridiculous. And I've never had, with all my MS, I've always had wonderful doctor stories. Like, I've never had that problem. It was horrible. And then I got the biopsy, and from the biopsy to meeting with the doctor was a week of hell that nobody should have to go through.
Your waiting time. Oh my goodness.
It's horrible. And I went in, and I'm a very optimistic person. And I'm like, well, my mother had breast cancer at 69 and it was nothing. And I never thought I had it. I mean, it was like I was in total denial. I thought, God, I got MS. I think that's enough, you know? And she said, you have breast cancer. And I was stunned. I mean, and I think my denial protected me through all those months. But then it was like, wow. But my breast surgeon is wonderful. And she told me about a lot of women who had what I have. And this is what she's going to do. And she got me so busy. There were like, I think 6 different professionals, you being one of them.
Yes,
Cindy.
I remember. Yeah.
So it was such a gift. I got to meet these wonderful doctors. And then it was lumpectomy time, you know, and it had the question, my life before breast cancer diagnosis, it was tough. You know, the MS made my life tough, but I've always felt so blessed and grateful. And that has helped me through this whole journey. But it changed my life. I think what changed my life more than anything else is what Marissa said. I knew my MS wouldn't kill me. I mean, it's a pain. It's, but it's different. I got this diagnosis that could kill. And I'm of the generation where I had aunts. Everyone who had breast cancer died. Period. That was the era. So that made me, like Marissa, really focus harder on what I have. And I got such an even more determination that I'm not wasting a second. That whatever I have, I'm going to live it.
Yeah.
I'm going to try to be the best person.
The motivation,
Yes.
you know, I really think everything we're saying today is so important for others to hear, because there's such a difference between a chronic illness and something that could be terminal. And, you know, that is an entirely different experience. Even the diagnosis is different when you're receiving it. Neither are easy situations to go through. They both take a lot of time and accommodating, even grieving, like you both mentioned. There's some grief involved because there's loss involved, loss of function. But then when you do get the second diagnosis and you think, well, this one could actually kill me, and then and the response to that could have been totally giving up, but you surrender to the things that you know help you, and then you actually got motivated. I think that's an amazing story. It's one that I think will be so motivating for other people and inspiring, because so many people land right in that juncture where they think things are so bad, and now this, you know, and how will I do this? The coping skills that you both have, just the way you cope with life, who you are. You mentioned optimism, you mentioned the faith base, you mentioned family support, the relationship with your doctors. All of that was encapsulated, you know, in what you said. So when you think about coping, secondly, once you had the cancer diagnosis and you had to go through surgery, chemo, radiation, whatever it is that you went through, what were like the main things that helped you cope? What do you think? I know there's so many, but if you could think of one or two of just the main thing, either internal, like about you, like you really were very optimistic or something, or external too. Maybe there's an external thing like other people, your support system. I know it's asking a lot to put it down to just two. So if you have more than two, that's fine too. I'm sure you have many. What about you, Marissa? What do you think as far as the coping?
So, for two big things for coping. One was like, I have to be there for my family.
Okay.
Like, I got to do this for them. I had a friend who really just was there for me every step of the way, and it really made a big difference. So the people in my life wanting to do it for them really helped. And then the other thing for me was I never really felt like I kept my focus on this is making my MS better.
Mhm.
And so I wasn't thinking about, oh my God, this is cancer and this is horrible. I was thinking, oh my God, this is treating my MS and I'm getting better. And
Amazing.
that's
Mhm.
where I kept my focus on, oh, look at this. Today, I was able to get up and down from the bed. I couldn't do that a year ago.
Mm.
That was so the two focuses, why I wanted to be here
Mhm.
and for the people in my life.
Mhm.
And then I guess I stopped looking at the scary cancer and started looking at this is a chance to heal.
Mm. Mhm. Mhm. Amazing. Amazing. Beautiful. Maxine, all your coping, external and internal.
Well, the biggest coping skill that I have is my spiritual relationship with God.
Mhm.
And that's where I land, that's where I live. Without that, phew,
Yeah.
really, even with it, there were a lot of tough nights, especially. Um, and what Marissa said, I would look at my family. I've got my kids, my grandkids, my husband, my cousin. I had a cousin who was 13 years older than me who got cancer, who got MS late in life,
Mm.
got cancer and died.
Mm. Mhm.
And I'm like the matriarch now. Everybody else has died. I'm it.
Mm.
And I looked at, and we're a very close family, all my cousins, we always get together and nieces. And I'm like, I, if it takes me, it's going to take me fighting. They're going
Mhm.
to see that I did absolutely everything I could. And times when, and I had people say, during chemo, even my oncologist said, you'll never make it to 12. You'll never make it to 12. You'll probably make it at 8. And, because of your age and the MS and blah, blah, that's okay. And I'm like, I made it to 12. I thought I was going to die.
12
I
chemo
really,
sessions you're talking about.
yes.
Wow.
But
Okay.
it
Goodness.
was like, there's a lot of people who are watching us.
Mm.
And if I just gave up, and there were a lot, believe me, there were a lot of moments of
Mhm.
this is not worth it.
Mhm.
And then I think about them and
Mm.
like, how would they feel if I gave up? What am I saying to them?
Mm.
I just couldn't do that. So
Mhm.
that helped me, my family, my friends, and
That's-
doctors. I had
mm.
awesome doctors, and they would have kicked my butt if I had come in with I'm done.
Wow. It's amazing. Those relationships, how deep they go. And like you're saying, you're an example. People are watching, and those people are your loved ones. They're important to you. So it's not just for your life, right? Like, yeah, that's really, were there times where either of you felt like you had to really advocate for yourself? And would you have advice for any other patients who might be newly diagnosed? It sounds like you both had very supportive staff, doctors, family. So no time you had to stop and say, no, this is not okay, and maybe advocate a little. You did, Marissa? Do you remember an instance?
Yeah, so I I was taking ACT
Mm-hmm.
therapy,
Mm-hmm.
adriamycin, Cytoxan, Taxotere. I
Mm.
think people usually do Taxol.
Okay.
And they were so worried about how I was gonna react. Usually people have adriamycin and Cytoxan at the same time, and then they finish it off with Taxotere, sorry, Taxol. And they did each one separately because they were so worried about the effects I was going to have since I was already in a wheelchair with MS. So with each medication separately, the adriamycin and the Cytoxan, I actually felt better because it was fixing my MS. And I kind of had a feeling about that last one because everyone was saying it can cause myopathy, it's neurotoxic, causes neuralgia, and I felt like it's going to be really bad for me. And in fact, after that first course of it, I was like couldn't move. It made me really, really, really sick, but not sick the way I think you think of getting sick with chemo. It wasn't like I was throwing up, and it was like my MS was on fire. I couldn't stand up. I couldn't get up from the bed. And so we were at an impasse about cost benefit. And I had to kind of, that no one was going to tell me what to do. So I had to be the one to make the decision. And I decided the risk of not completing the therapy was better than having the MS come back in full force. So I opted for not finishing that last course in favor of helping my MS. And so my advice, or what I would say to people, is that sometimes it's really just up to you to make these big decisions, and your doctors can guide you, but it's always ultimately up to you. And you gotta make the choices yourself. And that's hard to do, but it's really ultimately up to us.
It's really important. You also, Maxine, I see you
Yeah.
something there. Yeah.
Tell me what the question was.
So it was anytime you had to advocate for yourself, like maybe, yeah, it was a personal decision. So you have at least one, I see.
Oy, and this goes into some other questions that I was referred for my oncology to a place, a doctor. I met her. I loved her. I'm in the field of the health field, so I advocate for others for 50 years. I know how the system works. And so I checked with the office that you take my insurance. And they said yes. And I learned a huge lesson here. And I believed them. So I had my first chemo date, and that is a daunting date. I was petrified. I was absolutely petrified to start chemo. Every horror story, I was petrified. So all my faith is like, I don't know, on vacation. And I'm like petrified. My husband takes the day off from work. I have my surgeon had given me this pink bag, and it's filled with, because I'm going to be there forever. And and I was
all your goodies and blanket and socks and
everything. And I get there, and they put me in an office, a doctor office, not the hematology section. And I sat there for an hour.
Oh my goodness.
And I kept like poking my head out. Oh, we'll be with you in a minute. Well, they had never done my insurance.
Oh.
And so I'm like, well, do it now, like, come on. I had to wait some more. And this woman came in with a piece of paper and gave it to me. And she said, well, you can start today, but this is what you owe. And it was $9,000.
Goodness. What did you do? What did you say?
I was, I think, out of my mind in that
Yeah,
moment.
I'd be
I
in
really
shock.
was, I was very disappointed. The oncologist, who I liked very much, I heard her voice in the hall. She never came in. She never talked to me. They put me in the business office. I'm on the phone with my insurance company. And then it was like, I have to leave here because I'm gonna,
Mm,
and I just cried. I was like so overwhelmed. So anyone who has started chemo, I think, understands what I'm talking about.
mhm,
It's like bigger than your first day of school. It
mm.
is. But part of my team was a nurse navigator, and she was everyone's an angel, but this woman, I called her, she was livid. I mean, this was like outrageous.
Mhm.
And from the time my husband drove me back home, the nurse navigator had found places. I had talked to my insurance company. I found another place, and got an appointment for another oncologist for the next day. And then still, I had to wait like a week. And you're thinking in your mind, every day counts. You're supposed to start chemo,
Goodness.
and all this time is wasted. And then the insurance for the drugs were denied the day before I was supposed to start again. And I have like really good insurance. And all my drugs were I can't remember the names. I know I was on Taxol, but they were not different drugs. They were like, this is the protocol for breast cancer.
Exactly. Yeah.
And this is an I swear to God story. I was on the phone that day from like 8 in the morning, and at 10 o'clock at night, I finally found somebody who would authorize the drugs, and they had to special FedEx these drugs. And up until I my husband again drove me to this new place, the drugs were still not there. And as I'm getting out of the car, the FedEx truck came. And it is stress like I've never had. It was like unbelievable.
It is unbelievable. And I really think that unless, first of all, a lot of people who aren't in cancer don't realize that that can happen. You can get denied the very thing that is the protocol. How did you finally make sense of that in your mind, or did you? Did you try to figure out what's wrong, or why would this even happen, or
I think
what?
I blame myself. And I've always, being in the field,
Mhm.
if a nurse or a secretary or whoever said, I've checked it and you're
Mhm.
covered,
Mhm.
I'm a believing person. I don't believe anyone anymore.
Mm.
I had to go directly to my insurance company. I go directly to my insurance company for every doctor I have to see today, no
So
matter what.
you now call them first and say, am I covered? I have this appointment, or I have this medication. Am I covered? My goodness.
Absolutely.
What an
Absolutely.
awful experience to go through. You were already so keyed up and so fearful. And then the lack of information for at least an hour or more first, and then to actually present you with that bill or the cost, what the invoice would be. It's almost hard for me to believe, because the emotional aspect of where you are at that moment. How could anyone think that you could handle that, you know?
It was, and I didn't feel, I was so disappointed.
Mm-hmm.
And it is the doctor that so many people in the area that I live in
Mm-hmm.
is she's always referred to. And
Mm-hmm.
I was just so disappointed. But, you know, this cancer taught me
Mm-hmm.
that if it's not affecting me and my breathing and my cancer, I can't waste an ounce of energy on it.
I was waiting to hear that today,
I
for
cannot.
sure.
And I was
Mhm.
really, I mean, it was just unbelievable.
Mhm.
What, and on the topic, every major medicine I have to take for MS
Mhm.
and for cancer. And now I was on an infusion for 9 months after all the chemo was done.
Mhm.
None of it was covered in insurance. My my MS drug that costs almost $5,000 a month
Mhm.
with insurance, nothing is covered. And I learned, and there were these, I I after the first time with MS, I
Mhm.
learned to ask the questions of, are there foundations?
Okay, so the foundation kicked in. Yeah,
Who
no one knows about those unless you need it. Then you may not find out about it. That's exactly right.
and if I,
Mhm.
it was somebody who sort of haphazardly said that to me because I was
Mhm.
berserk of,
Mhm.
I have MS and
Mhm.
this is exactly the drug I'm supposed to take,
Mhm.
and I can't afford
Mhm.
$5,000 a month. Are
Mhm.
you kidding?
Mhm.
And
We could do an
so
entire hour just on the financial stress, but I didn't mean to cut you off right there. We'll go back to that. But the statement you made that this really taught you all those other stressors, those things that you entertain, other people's problems that really you can't fix, or other worries that you really don't have any control. They're not really affecting you also in the ultimate. You have to let those go now, right? I've heard that from so many cancer survivors, that you really learn to prioritize differently. We should anyway. We should all take a lesson from you and do that anyway, you know. But how that must be so hard to do.
it gets easier.
Okay.
It really,
Okay then.
I think it also gets easier as you get older.
Yeah.
But for anybody who is going to go through
Mm-hmm.
any kind of major illness, be it
Mm-hmm.
MS or
Mm-hmm.
cancer,
Mm-hmm.
I was the one that never, I didn't like to hear people bad mouthing insurance companies.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like that. Well, I'm on the bandwagon now.
Mm-hmm.
It's outrageous that the most important drugs,
Mm-hmm.
this isn't like to have better sex. This is
Right. This is
really our lives.
life and death, right? Mm-hmm.
And they're not covered.
Mm-hmm.
How, what kind of a world is this? It just blows my mind.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was the one never to say much great things about the drug manufacturers.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they saved my life.
Yeah, look at that. Look
They
at
have
that.
the foundation. I have
Mm-hmm.
4 years now, this MS drug I'm on, and I'm on another one, and they are so expensive. I've not had to pay a penny.
Goodness.
Yep.
And the
Marissa,
same
same
thing,
thing, same experience. Yeah.
So thank God I didn't have to go through that with the
Mm-hmm.
chemo for cancer. I can't even imagine the kind of stress you must have been under as you're fighting
Mm-hmm.
cancer. I did have that happen to me with an MS drug, and the MS drugs are specialty drugs just like chemo. So out of pocket, they're outrageous. I think 80,000, 100,000. Without insurance, you can't do it.
Mm-hmm.
The drug manufacturers do often help, which
Mm-hmm.
is a good thing to know. For me, I had this experience when I had a MS drug that you take it for 2 years and then you never take it again. The insurance covered the first year,
Mm-hmm.
but then they wouldn't cover the second year.
Mm-hmm.
And it was really frightening because it was like, it's almost worse to not do it at all. I mean, worse to do it and stop than
Yeah.
not do it at all. It was very outrageous that they would even try to pull that on me. I was calling the Florida Commission, trying to deal with this. It was very stressful. It was a battle. calling the insurance. And ultimately, this wasn't really on purpose, but I was on Facebook and I got in my messages, or sorry, on my feed, this advertisement for my insurance company. And I was like, I wrote a comment on there and I was like, you know, this insurance, I'm not going to say the name of it, failed me when I needed them the most.
Mhm.
I put that on Facebook. Guess what? Like a few hours later, I get this phone call.
Hmm.
And it's the insurance, and they're like, oh, okay, let's work on this. So it's an interesting thing to know that if you really have to do something, sometimes social media can make it happen, which I never knew. That happened for me, that posting about it on Facebook got the insurance to
That's
get.
interesting. So they're watching, I mean, that's pretty interesting, but that's because look at their reputation, how it would be affected. I think both the foundation for pharmaceutical companies and then the fact that posting something that which affects their reputation, there really is someone looking. Both of those are things people need to know about, right? Because you wouldn't otherwise know that. And you may never know that and then not get the treatment you needed or get the help you needed, which is awful to think about. That's amazing.
And the stress you go under to get your treatment, it's
Mhm.
like they're supposed to be helping us, and it
Mhm.
felt like they were doing the opposite.
Mhm.
I'm
Yeah.
glad that I'm very, very grateful that I was able to get the medications that I needed. And it really is a battle. And like Maxine is saying, you got to be your own advocate.
Mhm. And
There's
so
so many people. I mean, I am an advocate. That's professionally. I do this,
uh-huh.
and I was almost worn down.
Mm.
They really almost beat me. I
Mhm.
Yep.
and I'm
Yep.
thinking, how many people, people who never. I have a lot of education. I have a lot of skills. I do this, and I almost couldn't.
Mm. Mhm.
What about all these other people?
Mhm.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I tried to tell all my doctors my story, not for poor me,
Mhm.
but please help your patients because
Mhm.
this is what, cancer is bad,
Mhm.
MS is bad, but then
Mhm.
you have to fight the insurance companies like this.
Mhm.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes. Yes. That's even hard. That was maybe the hardest part for me with that MS treatment anyway. I can't even imagine going through that for cancer treatment. I'm so sorry you went through that. It's awful.
Mhm.
I think it
Yeah,
happened.
that's a part of the battle. Big part of the battle is
Mhm.
getting your treatment.
Yes.
Well, and
And
you
you
wouldn't
never
think you'd
think
have
it.
to fight for it. Yeah, I mean, you think this is the insurance you paid into. This is an insurance that's out there. This is the doctor has ordered it. What's the gap? Why is that not happening? But we do hear about it so much so. But just patients how would they know how to navigate that? And how would they have the wherewithal, like you're saying, Maxine, like most people, and so the question I had before where I mentioned how, one illness informing the other, I think we've answered like 10 times over already because there's so many ways it did. Personally, what you went through, just the skills and when you've overcome one big hurdle in life, that should give you some of the skills and track record for the next one that's coming. And you both had two really big ones, but you probably have more that I don't even know about. But with these two we're talking about, even within that, it would never be ever guessed that you'd have these periods of such long waiting or not being able to have the insurance pay for your medication. I mean, there's so many things no one would guess, the hurdles you couldn't be prepared for. It's amazing. Amazing.
One other thing that just came to mind
Mm-hmm.
is that the reports are done, the tests are done.
Mm-hmm.
There's all this waiting to see the doctor. I say, because I know how to do this, I want to see my report.
Mm-hmm.
I want my report. It's my report. The
Mm-hmm.
doctor's already read it. I don't need my other doctor to tell me. I do need it, but I want to know right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Mm-hmm.
couldn't get it.
You couldn't, was it not the kind of doctor that would have a patient portal then or something like that
There
where they
were
would post it?
portals, but the doctor has to sign it first.
Mhm.
I mean, and everything just becomes, what else could go wrong? Well, my surgeon got COVID.
Mm.
Oh,
I mean, stuff happens.
Wow.
I had a report on my biopsy that I knew was there. I threatened, I said, I'm coming to the hospital. This is my, I could go into all that stuff.
Mhm.
And I couldn't get it for days.
Oh.
I was wild. And I I I went pretty tough, because I do know the law.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, I am getting this report. And it happened. But
Mm-hmm.
what I had to go through,
Mm-hmm.
because there's a piece of paper that tells me what stage cancer I have.
Exactly.
We're not playing here.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't get it because my doctor has COVID.
Mm-hmm.
Are you kidding me? So there's a lot that
Yeah, and
I think
especially working in the system like you did, I'm sure you thought someone could stand in for her or him, someone could, there's got to be a way to make that happen. Why would the patient, it's your information and you
It's
own the
right.
test. Yeah, ooh, that's really difficult. The emotional toll is just, yeah, it's indescribable, but so do either of you even like the term survivorship? I'm always wondering. Yeah, some patients don't, some do, especially post-treatment patients. It has its own connotation. You can be honest, you, Maxine, or no?
Me,
Yeah.
I don't like it.
Mm-hmm.
I just a survivor is like there was a hurricane and stuff happened and you survived the hurricane,
Yeah.
in my mind.
Mm.
But for me, um, having had breast cancer,
Mm-hmm.
and now thank God the tests say I'm cancer free for
Mm-hmm.
today. It's something that will always be there,
Mm-hmm.
every couple of months or whenever you have to have the tests again. It's not like the hurricane's over and let's have a party. It's, at least for me, and I'm not morbid, and I really do believe I'm cancer free.
Mm-hmm.
But am I free from, okay, in another 3 months, I'm going to have another mammogram?
Mm-hmm.
It's a headset that
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I I believe we fight very hard.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone who has cancer I had to draw up a strength in me I didn't know I had.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a strong person, but
Mm-hmm.
cancer, it needed more. I had to
Mm-hmm.
more.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. I don't like it. Um I just don't like it. But
I,
I mean
I think
everyone
I hear what you're saying too. It's like survivor would mean it's finished. It's something that's completed. Like you're saying, like an event, a disastrous event, but it's not. It's actually almost just beginning because now you continue to have tests and think about how your life can affect your future, the risk, etc. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. You're not the first who hasn't liked the term. So, Marissa, you're liking it or not liking it, or neutral, or how are you?
so I I realize that when people say, "Oh, you're a survivor," that's a compliment.
Okay.
Like, "Oh, I take that. I appreciate that."
Yeah.
But I don't like to think of survivor because I think it disconnects me from my cancer. And I know for like my MS, a doctor that I was following for advice about MS diet and stuff, he made a really good point with MS, which is, you know, everyone's like, oh, I'm going to fight MS. I'm going to kick MS's butt. And he's like, no, you are MS. Those are your cells. That's you. You don't want to fight you. You want to balance yourself. You want to love yourself. And I feel that same way about cancer. It's like, those are my cells. That's me. And something about me is not in harmony. And so I think about it, and I think about sending love to my cells and having them work together. Cancer cells are cells that become very selfish, like me. It's just about me. And they need to learn how to work in harmony with the other cells. And I think you get that by balance and love and kind of owning it, if that makes any sense. It's part, because it is our cells. It's still us. I don't know if
It makes a lot of sense to me, but do you also, Maxine?
Oh, that was beautiful. I want to take Marissa. That was like, that's it. And what are our choice? I can be a survivor, or I can accept, you know, I think life is a crapshoot. We all get something. And so we got MS, we got cancer. We're sort of doubly blessed, you know. I think it's interesting. We're both Jewish. It's like the chosen. But
women, you're both women.
But it's, I have to integrate all of that in me. It's on my resume. It's me.
Wow.
Yeah.
What both of you are saying is amazing to me. I've read other patients and heard some saying too, but they said, embrace it. In other words, embrace all of who you are and what's come into your life, and try to help it, like you say, rebalance, or try to overcome, try to help that makes so much more sense than the fight attitude.
Yes, I think so. I think so. I think self-love is the biggest lesson I got out of this experience. Learning how to love and accept myself, however I am.
Great. And you too.
But I think that the fight piece, we have to fight. I mean, when you're in the thick of it with cancer, and even with MS, when you're in those places, if you don't fight, I think you lose. So maybe it's fighting to overcome it, like fighting too, but not fighting yourself. Maybe that's the difference of what you're saying. Right.
Yes.
Like
yes,
not
that's
trying
exactly.
to kill cancer, you're trying to fight yourself so that your cells, obviously the chemo, radiation, surgery is removing or somehow shutting down the cells that are the problem. But your job is doing everything you can for that, then enhancing your health and enhancing your mind and body both. You know, it's what I hear you saying. It's what I hear you both saying. But it's still a struggle. It's a struggle.
Yeah, it's not to say you shouldn't fight. You need to fight for your rights to get the medication you need. You need to fight to get up in the morning and fight to get in the car and go and do that treatment. That's a fight, but the fight shouldn't be against yourself.
Yeah, it's a fine but important distinction between the two, and just like anything in life too. I mean, the fighting part really is the overcoming, the learning, adapting, all of that. So you both feel like there have been benefits from it, right? And different meaningful things that have occurred even with it.
100%.
My
Anything
cancer
else?
made me nicer.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Me too.
To
Because-
yourself
Me
and
too.
to others, or how?
No, I think the husband is always the beneficiary of this. But the little stuff, I can't,
Hmm.
when I was closer to the cancer, I was much nicer. I was
Mhm.
much more tolerant because nothing else mattered. I was so
Mhm.
focused on surviving, on beating this.
Mhm.
And I've noticed as I'm getting further away from the cancer,
Mhm.
some of my impatience maybe is coming back,
Mhm. Mhm.
and stuff that just parts of myself I don't like. And
Mhm.
just talking about it now, it's making me realize I better, you know,
Mhm.
knock it off, because what does it matter? And
Yeah.
I think Marissa and I both had the opportunity to have many nights of, what if this is it?
Mhm.
What if this is the finish line?
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
if it is, I don't want to be anything other than the best I can be, the most loving I can be.
That's really beautiful too. And a lot of times we say to cancer patients, oh, try to keep life as normal as possible, get back to your normal, or you have a new normal. But I'm hearing more from both of you. It's really better to allow yourself and things to change and hopefully change for the better. You're not looking to go back to normal, or you hold on to the things that are good and important, but it sounds like you're almost pruning a little bit, you know?
Just, I think it made me kinder and less angry
Mhm.
and more appreciative
Mhm.
of everything I had. And like Maxine said, when you realize, I think nothing makes something seem more valuable than realizing you can lose it.
Mhm. 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 Important. It's where the gratitude that everyone talks about comes in, is you could almost lose. So you suddenly see so good what we do have, hold on to it. Do you think that staff, doctors, nurses, everyone else who works with the cancer patients, is there a message they should get from this that may also help them facilitate this for other patients?
Huh.
I know it's a system, it's a system that you both went through.
Yeah. Just maybe understand what a hard time the patients are going through, and you know just um a little kindness goes very far in both directions, from the patient to the healthcare providers and vice versa.
Mhm.
Easier said than done when you're in the thick of it,
Mhm.
but sometimes a smile or a positive comment by a nurse can make your entire day.
Mhm.
And likewise, when I think it helps the healthcare providers when I say thank you, I appreciate this. I think it makes a big difference to them too.
Mhm. Mhm.
I except for that one day in that one office, which was as bad as it, not one nurse, not one person came in to be real with me. It was horrible. That was, I think, the worst. Other than that, I have had such great, I mean, every, when I'd go in for chemo, all the nurses would chime in, oh, she's here for her angel juice. And
Mhm.
they'd come, we'd pray together.
Mhm.
They'd talk to me about their kids. It, and this one time I was in the middle of radiation, and you could fry an egg on it. It was
Oh
so
boy.
bad. It was so bad. And I had to go see the doctor because it was so bad. And I had the wonderful MS and cancer that every drug you gain weight.
No.
So I have to go from getting the radiation to seeing the doctor. I have this male nurse who's hilarious, and he's always joking. And he says, you have to get weighed. And I say, I don't want to. And he said, get on the scale. So I get on the scale, and the number is like 100 pounds more than I weigh. 100 pounds. And I'm like, oh my God, I haven't weighed myself in a while. This can't be real. And he said, well, get off and get on again, which is not easy. And I do it. And it's 100 pounds over again. And all of a sudden he taps me on the shoulder and he says, look down. And he had his foot on the scale. And it was like, we laughed so hard. I think of him and just smile. There were, to do the jobs they do, even that all, including you, Cindy, to be inundated with cancer. Oof, that is not easy. That is not easy.
No, thank you. But also, I'm doing this over 30 years now. We have so much to learn from people going through cancer. I mean, that's how I see it. And I think it's an interdependent relationship where if we watch closely, so many of the principles that you've both spoken about today can be applied to all of life's hurdles. The really, really tough ones, even the loss and the things that we might face, and also the ones that are less difficult, but they're all informing for us. So we should pay attention, to what, and listen closely to what you're going through, for sure. So now, and we have a little bit of change. I think, for example, Marissa, you're doing hand control class today. You just came from there for driving,
Yes.
which is amazing,
Yes.
right?
Excited. I'm really excited.
Again, your exercise is amazing to me too, because you have some equipment, I guess I should call it, that actually lifts and exercises your legs. Is that how that works?
Oh, okay. So I have a couple of things. Yeah, I have a zine, which is it's a wheelchair that you use your legs to propel.
Okay.
And that's really helpful to get my leg strength back. And I also have a wheelchair that you use levers to get around, and you can get on all terrain. So my next goal is to try to get on the beach.
Oh,
because since I've been in a wheelchair, it's been really hard to get to a beach.
That's so super. And Maxine, you might have a new diagnosis. I mean, we're not sure, but MS can be a really fickle and confusing diagnosis. So there may be a chance that it's not everything it was, or anyway, whatever that confusion is, it gives you some hope for possibly recovering in a way that you weren't expecting, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's amazing. Amazing.
I'm at the stage of my life now, and I think MS and cancer put me maybe to a higher level in that you just don't know. And I was the woman that could never have children. Went through it did it all, adopted 2 boys, and at 46 had a baby.
Oh, I didn't know that. Wow.
So I was told I had MS, and I have all the symptoms. I had all the tests that said MS. And now, because it's 4 years later and I haven't had an exacerbation since then, I've just had one. Maybe it's transverse myelitis, which it's not like something you put on your wish list. This is not.
Yeah, exactly.
I said to my doctor, so if it's one or the other, what is it, good news or bad news? He said, neither. Neither.
Yeah.
It is what it is. But, I don't define myself as MS or cancer.
Yes.
I every morning I say, thank you, God, I can wake up. I'm good. Whether I can walk or not that day is secondary.
Mhm.
You know,
Mhm.
on my worst days, I'm sitting in this chair, nice leather chair, feet up. I have phone, TV, computers, iPads, friends, I mean, and I just have to stay grateful.
Mhm.
So whatever it is, it's confusing. I guess what I've learned and being in the health field all my life,
Mhm.
just use a pencil. I don't write anything in pen. It's because
Oh.
Yeah.
you
Nice way
never
to put
know.
that, for sure. Wow.
I,
Yeah.
Maxine, you made me think of one thing. I was filling out a form. I'm gonna see an alternative doctor. Um, and I was filling out the form and, they were asking about, my mobility and all that kind of stuff. And one of the questions was, what's your quality of life
Mm.
from a, 0 to 10? And I'm like, what does that mean? And okay, I'm in a wheelchair. I just had cancer. My hair is just starting to grow back, and I put 10. I was like, my quality of life is fantastic. I'm here. I'm alive. I have my family. Like, what does that mean? Quality of life. It's 100% what you make of what you have.
Mm.
I think I have the best quality of life I've ever had because
Mm.
I really appreciate it.
Both of you. Wow. So you're both so inspiring. I'm glad we're recording this because it's so inspiring. It's so informative, but it's been so inspiring. And it's real that, your experiences are real. And just get ready. I really think we're going to hear from other people, who I hope we do. I'd love to hear from other people, questions, ideas, comments. I want us to really be out there, motivating and encouraging, because this is, for me, just listening to it's energizing for me. And that's how I go and help other people, because just hearing from both of you, your experiences are empowering, very empowering, but very real. I think that's so important. It really is. So stay on, but I want to thank you both for coming, spending your time with me, sharing so openly. Really appreciate it. And maybe we'll do more interviews in the future, especially if they're asked for, or you think of something else you'd like to do, just let me know and we'll do that.
Thank
Thank you
you.
for coming. Yeah, even in the car on
That
the
would
way
be
home.
great.
Perfect. Yeah, and in your nice,
Thank
easy
you.
chair. Yeah, thank you. So I'll stop the recording and then we'll talk a little.
Okay, thank you.